Don't go into the water. When I was a kid, I spent summers at my grandparents' house in a small town called SDYL. They had a small 2-bedroom house and a yard that was almost entirely taken up by a good-sized pond. As a boy, I was completely infatuated with that pond. There's a small dock that I would hang out on just so I could be near the water. I'd spend hours sitting in the sun on that dock, playing with my action figures, coloring pictures, or idly throwing stones into the water. I would spend so much time out there that grandma would yell at me to come inside. She'd say that she was tired of checking up on me to make sure that I hadn't fallen in. But that's the thing, I loved spending time near the water, but I never swam in it. I knew how to swim. In those parts, I'd be hard pressed to find a kid who didn't, but I never so much as dipped a toe in that water. No one ever told me not to go in. In fact, my grandparents encouraged it, as long as they were around to supervise. But to little kid me, to touch that water felt like sin. I have the vaguest memory of watching something sliding beneath the surface. A dark shadow writhing in the water. I always did have a vivid imagination. Mom called me up the other day to tell me they're selling the house. Grandpa died a few years back, and with grandma moving into a nursing home, they decided there was no use keeping the place around. Mom asked if I could come over and help clear the place out. When I got to the house, I didn't spend much attention to the pond, except to notice that it seemed a lot smaller now that I was grown. I spent the day helping Mom move boxes and furniture into the moving truck. Eventually, with the truck packed and the house in order, it was time to leave for good. Mom seemed in a hurry to go, but I decided to stick around a bit and take my time saying goodbye. I walked out to the pond, where I had spent most of my childhood summers. I sat on the dock and watched the water ripple gently in the breeze. I wondered what my obsession was with this water as a kid, and why I never swam in it. It occurred to me that this would be my last chance ever to swim in this pond. I stripped off my shoes and my socks, pulled my t-shirt over my head, and pulled off my jeans. I stood on the dock and looked into the water, feeling at peace with this final goodbye. I jumped into the water with a splash. I sank into the murky depths, then surfaced and laughed. It was cold, but it felt good, like it was something I should have done a long time ago. I floated on the surface for a while, thinking about grandpa and grandma and my childhood. The sun felt warm on my cheeks and I began to feel drowsy when I felt something brush up against my leg. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, there were some fish in this pond and plants as well. It's only when I felt the thing start creeping up my ankle that my heart rate began to rise. I kicked my legs, trying to get the thing off me, but it only gripped tighter. Panic bubbled up my throat and erupted in a scream. The thing that gripped my ankle was dragging me under. I flailed my arms desperately. All thought fled my mind. My only instinct was to survive. My head dipped underwater as I tried to swim free. I bent my body to rip the thing off my ankle. The murky water stung my eyes. The thing wrapped around my ankles was thick and black, like a serpent. It snaked down into the murky depths, where it was trying to pull me. Aware of the fact that I was quickly running out of air, I moved quickly to unwrap the thing from my ankle. I dug my fingernails into it and used all my strength. It loosened its grasp, and I was able to surface, gasping and choking for air. I struggled towards land, unsure if the splashing in the water was just me or something else as well. As I reached the shore, I felt something brush up against my toes. With strength I didn't know I possessed, I heaved myself up and collapsed on the lawn. Conscious of the burn of air in my lungs and the rocky shoreline underneath my hands, I looked back into the water. At first, I saw nothing. There were a few ripples from where I had gotten out, but all else was calm and quiet. The sun reflected off the water, preventing me from seeing into the pond's depths. Then I saw it. A dark black shadow was sliding towards me beneath the surface. I moved backwards away from the pond, but the thing kept coming. Then suddenly, it was at the water's edge. The thing that emerged from the water was strangely human-like. It had a grey pallid torso. Instead of arms, it had writhing black tentacles. The head that gazed back at me seemed oddly familiar. It lacked a nose and the eyes were large and intelligent. It gurgled. I stared, frozen in terror. It paused, struggling to speak. Came back. What? I croaked. Images were coming, unbidden, into my mind. I was a little boy, talking to the water. Do remember me? It said. No, I cried. I can't. It's not real. I pulled at my hair with my fists, remembering things long forgotten. I knew this monster once. I spent huge chunks of my childhood with it. How could I have forgotten? My reaction seemed to enrage the creature. You left me. It sputtered. Never came back. It moved closer to the shore. I was frozen, awash with the memories that I had forgotten. It was like my entire childhood was a lie. I wasn't alone spending time by the water as a kid. I had never been alone. The thing reached the shore and began to crawl towards me. This isn't real, I cried. It reached out a tentacle and wrapped it once again around my ankle. I felt like I wasn't really there, a sideline viewer instead of an active participant. The thing once again began to drag me back into the pond. When the water hit my foot, I snapped out of my reverie. I'm sorry, I said. I forgot. I tried to pull away from it. Forgot? It screamed and began to pull me faster into the water. Forgot? I tried to dig into the ground around me, slowing its progress. I used my free foot to kick at it. We were moving quickly into the water now. As my shoulders hit the pond, my hand found a large rock and I gripped it tightly. I launched my body forward as best I could and smashed the rock into the thing's skull. It screamed and suddenly I was underwater, grappling with it. Dark blood swirled around us, choking me and making it impossible to see. I still had the rock in my hand and I moved it around blindly until making contact with the creature once more. I hit it again and again. My lungs were on fire. I couldn't breathe. Just as I thought I wouldn't last a second more, the creature grew limp and I surfaced. I managed to pull myself to shore. The next 15 minutes I spent coughing. Exhaustion sat like a boulder on my chest. I spent an hour on that shore, limply letting my strength return. The sun began to set when I went back into the water one more time. It took me an hour, but I eventually found the thing's body. I pulled it out, struggling with the weight of it. Dragging the thing into the woods, I realized I didn't have a shovel to bury my childhood friend. Instead, I lay it at the base of a large oak tree and covered it with leaves. It took me a month before I could muster up the courage to tell someone about what had happened to me. Of course they didn't believe me. I could have gone back to the house to show them the body, but I didn't. I never want to step foot near that pond again. I had said my goodbyes to that house and to my old friend. There is nothing more for me there. The kicking of my bed. Okay, so there's probably an explanation to this one, but my family knows about it, and they didn't recall doing anything, and they can't think of a reasonable explanation to this as well as my friends that I told. So if you think of anything, please leave it in the comments. Also, disclaimer, I may have some things wrong cause the smaller things on this story I didn't pay attention to that much, so sorry in advance. Anyway, about a year ago, when you was 13, I was going to bed on my usual time, to get up for school in the morning. Usual night, nothing was happening. Now I do remember that once in a while lights would go on and off a few times in the bathroom across the hall, and the hall light would flicker on and off a few times as well. My mother said she might have done it, but I don't think she would be turning on and off lights every second. Note the bathroom and hall lights were always separate occasions. I have a family of 4 and a dog. Mother, father, brother, me, and my dog. During all these occasions with my bed, they were downstairs and my brother was in his room on his computer playing his games. So it most likely wasn't them, and they all said they didn't do it. They might be lying, but my parents have no reason to, and my brother was basically always playing Minecraft. But during this week or so everything was the worst. Not too bad, but the biggest event I experienced at least. And I got in bed around 10 o'clock, pulled the sheets over me, and slept in my usual position, which was towards the wall. And about a minute or two in, I felt a little knock on the foot of my bed. And I have a wooden bed frame, so I could hear it as well as feel it. Now at the time I was scared of ghosts, so I didn't dare look, and just lay there sweating. And it stopped after about 4-ish or so small knocks. That was the end of it. Or I thought. Next night, same small tapping / knocking. Again small, but I could hear and slightly feel it. Same situation. Just laid there hoping it would go away. It then skipped a night. The next night, after it stopped, it happened again. Same exact thing. Tap, 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 Lasted about a few measly little seconds with the sound of wood being hit from the other side of me. I laid there just trying to ignore it. This is what made it a big deal to me. The next night, it happened again. Just different. Very different. Instead of a small tapping, and maybe little knock here and there, it was harder. Very much so harder. It was more of a kick. 5 or 6 kicks. And I don't think I was sleeping cause it was almost right after I got in bed. Kick. 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 Then it stopped. It returned the next night, but just small taps, and never happened again. It just completely stopped after that week or so of kicking and tapping, and other small occasions that usually have an explanations to them. For example, in the middle of the night, I woke up to the sound of rustling through a bunch of things on the side of my room. I thought it was my dog, so I called Danny. The rustling stopped for a second then continued. Like I said, I thought it was my dog, so I ignored it. But as I'm thinking about it, there was no jingle of his chain cause. Whenever he moves a little metal tag on his collar jingles, but there was none of that. But maybe my brother took the collar off of him. Also it was the middle of the night and I've never heard or seen my dog being energetic late at night when everyone's asleep, unless he needs out. But after that's done he just goes back to bed. So it was probably him, but I really don't know for sure. Then about a few months ago, there was this running in the hallway. Again, brother on the computer and my parents in bed with my dad sleeping, and my mom said that she didn't run through the hallway. It was heavy and loud steps from my parents' room to my room then just stopped after a second or two. And finally, about 2 weeks ago another major thing happened. For no reason at all my bed started shaking. The mattress and the mattress only. And I could see and feel it. I called my mom cause she was in the hallways at the time. She placed her hand on the bed and confirmed she felt like a popping. And I felt shaking. So maybe the bed was shaking cause of that popping. It most likely was the springs doing something cause my mattress is about 10 years old, but I don't know. Sorry for a long and meaningless post, but I just wanted to lay out all my encounters that I can't really confirm if it's a ghost or not. But if anyone has any ideas please leave them in the comments. Thanks for reading. Thought I was losing my mind, but I was being haunted. This has become very long. I'm trying my best. I tried to cut it down as much as possible, but it's a long story and I wanna explain it well. So here it goes. This happened when I was about 18. I was still living with my mom brother. L had enough trouble in life that it would actually justify being mentally unwell, but this was beyond that and weird timing because things were fine. I was doing relatively good, but in a few months time I had become increasingly suicidal and lost, just absolutely confused. I'd have spells of walking into rooms and not knowing how I got there. This was beyond the normal forgetfulness. In the middle of this, I had to be hospitalized for a sudden infection followed by an accident, and it was the first and last time in life I ever fainted. This is about 2 events, the worst ones. There are other smaller things that happened, but it is too much stuff to write. I started having weird nightmares that I don't want to describe here for brevity. I prayed this confusion would go away, did some cleansing rituals, and the confirmation came not from me, but what my family saw. They didn't know about me being distressed yet. 1. First event. My brothers and my room were door-to-door 1.5 meters apart on a dead-end T-junction. To the right side of my room was a bathroom. Edit. Couldn't make a scheme of my house, sorry. I was in the bathroom. My brother enters my room and starts chatting. Long enough that me in the bathroom doing my hair asked him in a curious way, "Who are you talking to?" He yells and I exit the bathroom. All doors to these 3 rooms were wide open, and I enter my room to find my brother inside my room looking white as ash in the face. He said he saw a girl sitting on my bed facing the wall, long black hair like mine, and looked like me, but in a dress, and for quite a while thought she was me, and was attempting to talk to her but no reply. My brother is really afraid of these things and he would not touch anything supernatural. Me and my brother talked about it and I say, "Don't tell mom, just don't, I will deal with this." We both go to bed. Next day I'm frantically thinking how to get rid of this spirit, because now I know I'm kinda screwed. 2. Second event. After dinner, we are all sitting at the table. We had all just come home, and my dog is happily sitting by us just waiting for some yummy food from the table as usual, when he gets up, faces away from us, and starts wildly barking / growling at the front door. This makes my mother look to the door, to my back. She then gets up and says something like, "Who are you? Get out." By now we are all standing. The dog has an aggressive posture, growling, and has all hairs on his back standing. Our front door had metal bars in front and a huge sliding iron gate that we never heard opening. We're all like, who was that? How did they get here? My mom just goes, "Calm down. Never mind. It's not real." She does the sign of the cross and says a little prayer. We then told my mom about event #1 and she said, "Well, then that's that." We were so scared we did not want to talk about it anymore and told us to ignore it. Later when I asked Mom says that she saw a woman with long curly black hair and a simple cotton dress. She thought it was a beggar or crazy person that had somehow entered the house. She had her hands grabbing the bars and face pressed between. Imagine like a prisoner. She looked at the dog, looked at my mom, turned foggy and disappeared. The front door was very well lit. The next day was a Saturday. We were free and my mom was like a drill sergeant, and we must have spent half a kilo of rock salt, loads of incense, sage, and herbal plus salt bath for all the family. We went full exorcism on the house. The dreams faded away in about a week. I started recovering, having an appetite again, and my mind was clearing up. The forgetfulness was gone. I was doing good again, like I was never even unwell in the first place. But I was quite disturbed and a bit scared. I wonder if I picked up this companion at the hospital. TLDR. Op got very mentally disturbed. Island suicidal. Op prayed and then turns out there was a ghost in my house for a while. After praying for better days, the ghost starts showing up to people, as if revealing itself. Op's brother, mother and the dog all saw and somewhat interacted this ghost, as if a real person. Op's family basically exorcise the house, and it goes away. Op stops feeling suicidal. Things improve a lot. I think I was haunted. IDKY. Maybe I picked it up at the hospital, and it made things worse. Do you guys think this was a demon, or just a spirit? Why would it do what it did? It had to be after me. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.